This band has had the greatest career resurgence either in metal history or at least this century. The band we're talking about is obviously Deftones, one of my absolute favorite bands ever. Rossi's, I think that this probably is Rossi's favorite band ever, and I put him onto this band. And yeah, for Deftones fans, for people who haven't listened to this band yet, I'm hoping that we can put you guys on. And Deftones fans, hopefully you guys enjoy our ranking. And yeah, one interesting thing about this band is like yeah, their career resurgence. Like yeah, this has just been so nice to see because I've been a fan of this band for like quite a while, and I've always thought they were like hella overlooked and underrated. But seeing them blow up on TikTok, seeing Sex Tape go crazy online, seeing the intro from LMIRL also blow up is just like it's just been so pleasing to me. And even yeah, Slipknot is like actually one of the best-selling metal bands of all time. But like now on Spotify, Deftones actually has more monthly listeners than them, so which is like pretty interesting to see. But yeah, anything you want to get off your chest, Rossi, before we get into this ranking?
Yeah, Deftones. I'm still in a struggle if they are my favorite band, but they're definitely competing for that spot. I mean, they did hold that spot. It was the music that they make is very eccentric. It's very different from a lot of metal bands, especially new metal bands that populated throughout the late 90s to the early 2000s. In terms of the popularity and blew up, they really had this shoegazy style enlisted towards all their albums, and with the vocals that Chino brings and the production and instruments that they throw over their songs throughout all these albums is definitely something to behold, especially for a metal band. And definitely one of the best metal bands that I've ever listened to, if not ever detailed in the world. But nonetheless, get straight away over towards our rankings. We will be ranking over all their albums they have published over, going from our worst to best. Both me and TMZ Guy will be providing our pros and cons, what we like, what we don't like about the albums, and give you an overall breakdown of everything that they have given us. So we can go straight away with our first albums are the worst albums from their discography. TMC Guy, what have you come up? What's your lost from their discography?
Do you want to go first?
um
Right, go first.
let me go first. Oof.
Yeah.
This is very tough, man. But I feel like the first one I'm gonna go with the last place is gonna be Ohms, in my opinion. With Ohms, they really did try to take a new approach, especially coming into it's been like what 20 years since they were made already. In that time when they dropped their debut album,
25
it's
years.
been yeah, it's been quite a long time, and them jumping over to this new style, it didn't really work for them in my opinion. Now, not to say that it's a bad album, they did do some good things. From my opinion, I really do like songs like this Link is Dead and Radiant City. They really do go out. Ohms is also pretty alright, but I'm really not a fan. They really laid back in terms of the instruments in the production in this album, in my opinion, try to go overboard, in my opinion. But yeah, I think I'm gonna give it to Ohms as my least favorite from their discography. But TMC guy, please let me know what your worst one is.
Okay, so yeah, like one thing I noticed when going through rankings I saw online is just how different every single list is for this band. So yeah, this is going to be a really interesting video. So and a very subjective and unique ranking, I guess, since every single Deftones album ranking seems to be. But yeah, my number nine is actually going to be Gore. My number nine is going to be Gore. Like this is definitely their most divisive, yeah, album. It's always like ranked at the bottom of their discography for me, and it's not bad. It's just but it's definitely not up to Deftones' usual quality. And there's a lot of good stuff here, though, especially at the beginning of the album. It's the most sonically impressive part of the album. I love the layered and dreamy and ethereal guitars on prayers and triangles, and Chino's chorus on that track. But the best songs on here are definitely track 2 and 3. Acid Hologram is such an enormous feeling song. The guitars feel monumental. I love the droning, sluggish, and kind of eerie riff from Steven. Doomed User has a jagged and in-your-face bombastic guitar riff, and I love that, like the tone of it too. Just that boom, 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 boom. Just such a heavy, nice guitar tone too. But from here on, I really don't know like what they were going for. Like Geometric Headdress like has a nice riff, and the one that kicks off this track, and it really pops in and out. But they switched the riff up some to some like really weird, boring, nothing ass riff in the track. So like it's just Geometric Headdress is like some bright spots here, but overall it's like just like a really mid song. So yeah, it just really takes you out of it, just like that boring part of that track, and so you kind of half enjoy and half hate the track. And then we have Hearts and Whys, which they had high hopes for, but it really just falls flat for me. Like, what are we really getting from this track? Like, the riff is the most generic, sad pop rock riff like ever, and Chino's lyrical content is completely uninteresting, and he doesn't even make up for it with having good melodies or making the song catchy in some way. And same for a lot of the other tracks on this. The middle of this album is the biggest lull in any Deftones album ever. They also tried to be experimental on this with some electronic elements on songs like Xenon, but they just didn't work out. They often added nothing to the track. They usually drowned out by the guitars or vocals, in fact. But the album picks up by the very end of it, though. The title track has a nice, crushingly heavy riff in it, and Phantom Bride is amazing too. I love that breakdown at the end of the song and that solo. But that's really it with this album. Some good stuff on it, with some bad ideas leading to like an overall mixed listening experience. But yeah, what is your number 8?
All right, my number 8 is actually going to be Gore. Now you basically said a lot of things that I did want to point out. It has a very strong beginning, a very lackluster middle, and a pretty decent to good end in that regard. This one really stood out with me. I think it just has a personal attachment, in my opinion, because I did listen to it at a critical time, so it did sort of hit heavy to me. That's why it does rank a bit higher, in my opinion. But I do agree with what you have stated. I mean, you have songs like Acid Hologram and Doomed User, which are very good beginners towards the song, besides the intro track, Prayer slash Triangles, which I also did like. I mean, the energy that Chino did bring in when he's going through the chorus is somewhat an inspirational type of feeling, in my opinion. Um, it's something that I didn't really get from Chino listening to his other previous albums. Maybe some songs here and there, but it was a different approach that I really did enjoy. And he really did bring a lot of energy, plus the production as well does flow really good. But then moving down over to geometric hairdress, hot slash wires, even Xeons, they do fall flat. I'm not going to lie, they are not as strong as the beginner tracks that I did reference over. Even bracket L, MIRL. It's a very confusing song in my opinion because the experiment that they tried to do there was just off. It didn't really feel like Deftones in that aspect. It felt like, maybe like a teenager just trying to make some um electric metal album in the bedroom. It feels underwhelming. Doesn't feel like there was much element going towards it, in my opinion. But yeah, but Gore and Phantom Bride. I mean, Gore is my favorite track on this album. It's very good.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of strong elements from China and the production and the band members overall. Same with Phantom Bride. These really pick up on my opinion, and I tend to just take those few songs and extract them over towards my detailed Deftones playlist. So yeah, the album does speak a lot of volumes, but there are definitely some downsides here. It's gonna land at my number 8 spot. TMC guy, what's gonna be your number 8?
Yeah, I agree. I agree on what you said on the title track for that song. I really like that riff, that bam, 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 bam. That shit goes
Yeah,
hard. But yeah,
yeah,
number 8 for me is actually gonna be Ohms. So I guess we just swapped our last two placements. Yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm gonna have their last album here. It's kind of like in the same category as Gore for me when it comes to quality, but it's definitely better. It's a more consistent listen, although there are quite a few pitfalls. And I don't really revisit the songs on here that much besides Genesis, The Spell of Mathematics, and Ohms. I think the guitars didn't quite blow me away. I wouldn't put anything here as some of their best work really. Just a few bright spots here and there. Like the riff in the second half of Era is pretty good, and Pompeii's verse riff is also really nice, for instance. Even lyrically, I feel like they didn't have much to say on this. I guess they feel somewhat content, judging from the lyrics of the first track, where they say they finally reached balance. And also, it's decently experimental, but I feel like it has the same problems as Go, where the electronic elements and genre fusions aren't immediately apparent unless you really pay attention. They're also just drowned out by the rock sounds too. But on Urantia, there's some layers of melodies and harmonizing on there that sound pretty cool at least. But the best riff for me would either go to the Spell of Mathematics. Like I love that gargantuan, planet-sized heavy riff that drops in the chorus, and as well as the riff from Ohms. It's one of the most memorable riffs from modern Deftones and gets my head banging all the time. But yeah, next let's get into our number seven. What is your number seven, bro?
Okay, my number seven is going to be self-titled, or yeah, self-titled Deftones. Their I think it was fourth album that they did produce. Now this album is pretty good. This is in my opinion the most heavy album, which is sort of a detour from given from what they have provided in the past and further on. Now, Deftones is not a it's not a very hard it's not like a hard band that a lot of people are going to turn ears away from. It's actually enjoyable music that you can go in, since they dive into a lot of alternative elements from what I picked up. This album doesn't have that at all. It goes full in, low-key feeling like Slipknot album. Not really, because Slipknot is its own bit of
Much
it in its
heavier.
own genre. Yeah, yeah, but it's much more heavier. You can tell like they really wanted to make this kind of album in terms of having a heavy album within the discography. In my opinion, not to say that it doesn't work. It's just different to a point where I prefer their other stuff more in terms of what they do bring over to the table. But I mean, you have songs here like Hexagram, Death Blow, Battle Axe, even Bloody Cape that I do really enjoy, bringing over that heavy element towards these tracks here. Chino must have strained his voice making this album. I'm not gonna lie. I think this is where he really blew his vocal cords away. But yeah, the album is pretty good. I'm not going to lie. It's an album that I keep going back over to. Not as much as the others that are gonna come after my list, but definitely something that you should listen to, especially if you are becoming a fan of Deftones. Something different that they do make, but still strong within their discography. But what's gonna be your number seven?
Okay, my number seven, just before I get into my number seven, I'm gonna say like this for me is just when the albums get really good from Deftones. Like I'd put the last two, my number eight and number nine, maybe as just like a six or something out of 10. But from here on out, it's just an 8 out of 10. That's just how good Deftones' discography is, and yeah, my number seven is going to be their first album, actually, Adrenaline. And off the bat, Deftones knows how to kick off an album, like, and it's been apparent since their first album. Bored is one of their best intro tracks ever, and they've carried this tradition of having banger intro tracks throughout their entire discography. Like the intro tracks are often the best, if not one of the best songs on the album. So that's tracklist placement for me, in my opinion, that they've seemed to master pretty early on in their career. They're one of the best in the game at doing this, actually. They know how to get you interested in listening to the rest of the album, thanks to their track placement. I love Ward's riff and simple but catchy chorus. The verse riff is also nice and simplistic. The lyrics are also a pretty great summation of what you get from Deftones. Their lyrics are incredibly simplistic and sometimes straight up sound like broken English. Like the lyrics can be also very very cryptic, which is what this band is most known for lyrically. Fans be debating about the meaning behind the lyrics of Deftones like since like the beginning of their career actually. And there's quite a few Deftones tracks where I'm like, nah, this doesn't really sound proper, like proper English. This doesn't sound grammatically correct. Like on the song, yeah, yeah. Like on the song Root, like he says, just because I will afford, living in me is so poor, and cannot fuck to be me, and you won't find me. Like, what the hell does that even mean, dude? Like, what does that mean? What does that? It's just like, yeah, I have no idea what he means by that. Just sounds like broken English. And Minus Blindfold has one of my favorite verse riffs on the entire album, and I like the lyrics of him delving into a traumatic experience he experienced to into a traumatic moment he experienced when he was 12. But yeah, theme wise, the album delves into youthful anger and frustration, abuse, trauma, and troubled relationships. You can tell they had a lot to get off their chests emotionally, but it definitely veers into cryptic territory where you genuinely just don't understand the lyrics, which is obviously what Deftones came to be known for. The riffs are some of Deftones' best to this day. I love the way this album sounds, dude. Like, you get that classic heavy nu metal riffing, like on the amazing riffs from Bored, Nosebleed. That song has such a killer riff. I love the riff from Nosebleed. Engine number 9, 7 words, Root. You get that heavy, mosh pit worthy riffing on here with those songs. But you also get the more subdued riffs like Minus Blindfold, Fist, or Fire Reel. Also, Chino's vocals needed refining on this. They're not awful, but he could definitely do with some improving. His voice cracks or he just randomly sounds inaudible or incoherent at times. It's like the lyrics you hear sound absolutely nothing like what they're like what you're reading online. Overall, the album has a nice fusion of alternative rock and metal. Some songs definitely lean more to either genre, like Fire Real and Fist being the alt rock examples, and Bored, Nosebleed, and Engine Number 9 being the metal examples. So yeah, what is your number 6?
All right, yeah, my number six is actually gonna go to Adrenaline. Now you spoke pretty much about the album there for me, and I think this is where self-titled perhaps maybe got a high six to a low seven. This is just going to be from eights to perfects from now on. I think this is where it does start off for me with Adrenaline here. This is definitely and not to misplace words from other genres or whatnot, but the raunchiest album in a good way though. um I feel like me making music for a long time and coming up as a teenager, it has a lot of similarities towards that. I mean, you spoke towards the not mispronunciation, but the broken English that's basically given onto the album. It's something that I can sort of relate to in that aspect because when I started rapping, words didn't come as easy, rhymes didn't come that easy. So simple rhymes in that factor would sort of have to do, and it sort of brought me back towards that thought, which I thoroughly enjoyed in my opinion, even though it is kind of ridiculous as fuck. But otherwise, the songs here are absolutely bangers. Definitely room for improvement on this album, given from both from the production to the vocals that Chino has given. We can definitely tell that there should be improvements here and there, but it's still a strong start from what they had to provide. With this being their first album, and I feel like they did a really, really good job, especially with them being quite young at the time. A lot of pressure, especially with this genre popping off around this time. I feel like they wanted to have a good landing here, and I think they did stick a pretty good landing, in my opinion. I mean, with songs like Bored, Mine is Blindfold, The Nosebleed, Root, 7 words, Birthmark. I mean, this track list is loaded with some really, really good songs, which I do highly recommend that you do listen to, in my opinion. But yeah, Adrenaline's definitely gonna go on my number six spot. A really, really good album from Deftones. But what's gonna be your number six?
Yeah, yeah. I like what you said about it. Yeah, it's just yeah, this band is so good. I feel like from number 7, from my number 7 onwards, you could point to any album and say, yeah, this is my favorite Deftones album, and I wouldn't be like you're tripping. Yeah, 'cause, they're at
Sure,
least
for
like an
sure.
A. Yeah, at least like an A to an S tier from here on out. But yeah, my number 6 is going to be the self-titled album, Deftones. So yeah, this one's one of their darker albums, which you kind of pointed out earlier, with few spots of light here and there. The themes in this generally revolve around codependence and relying on someone to make their life better, like on Deathblow or even on Needles and Pins or Minerva. They also have that codependence or that "oh, I need you," type of feel to the lyrics, or at least that's what I picked up. They definitely sound obsessive or desiring someone obsessively or just intense rejection, like on the immensely heavy When Girls Telephone Boys. The album seems very obsessed to either obtain or just get rid of someone on this album. So the album just feels like it's about a tumultuous, troubled relationship. That started out well, then just devolved into toxicity afterwards. The first four tracks is one of the best four-track runs Deftones has ever had on an album, if not the best one. They have some of their most memorable choruses and are one of their moodiest too. I love Hexagram. It has one of their most unique riffs. Actually, it sounds simultaneously monstrously heavy as well as sweet and melodic at the same time. Needles and Pins is so groovy and has nice atmospheric breaks in it too, with a killer sing-song chorus. And it's also one of their most positive songs lyrically too. He pretty much just compliments you throughout the entire song, saying, "Oh, you're blessed and everything," and it just puts me in such a good mood listening to Needles and Pins. And probably the most praised song on this is the shoegazy Minerva. The soundscape on this is so dreamy and it had heavy space rock influences. It's such a deeply ethereal track. I love the lyrics too. It really fits the mood of the instrumental, talking about how someone singing makes them numb and could bring peace to the earth. It's just such a beautifully written song. Good Morning Beautiful has one of their best choruses ever. It's sung so well too. I love the ambient and industrial guitars and that heavy riff in the chorus. But after that, the sun shines over. The album takes a dark turn from track 5 onwards. Death Blow actually sounds like doom metal, actually. Even the distortion and guitar effects used in the verse riffs sound something like classic Black Sabbath. And the most experimental track on this is Lucky You. It has such a dark, moody feel thanks to that dark industrial electronic production. Bloody Cape is an overlooked heavy gem for me. Just earth-shatteringly heavy guitars and crazy screaming from Chino. It's one of my favorites on the album. It's such a memorable track. But I love that the album ends on a somber note with the shoegazy anniversary of an uninteresting event and Moana, with its dreamy echoed vocals. The former song has such a melancholic mood, and I think it was fitting to put this near the very end of the track list, given how dark this album was. So yeah, Dark Album has its emotional ups and downs, and another solid effort from the band. What's your number five gonna be?
All right, my number five, and I still struggle to pronounce the album of the name of this album here. Koi no Yokan, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
yeah,
I think that's
yeah, it's Japanese, so I think it might be Koi no Yokan. I think.
yeah. Koi, my tongue doesn't, it can't articulate that. I don't know why. Even if I try to, it just doesn't want to. But yeah, that's gonna be my number five. Koi no Yokan. Um, I feel like this is a very, very good album. It's definitely where Deftones starts to change, though, in terms of their genres. Now, I feel like this is gonna be a combination of their self-titled with even something like a Saturday Night Wrist, in my opinion, in terms of the production and the style that was brought onto this album. Now, I believe this was the first album without one of their guitarists, right?
Yeah, the bassist Chi Cheng.
Yeah, Chi Chang. Yeah, this was the first one, and I could really tell his presence being without this album. What he brought, which I will touch on towards the other albums that we will break down, was something very interesting towards who Deftones were, and that element was definitely missing from this album, which I could really feel here. But it it's still this album is really, really dreamy. There's some really, really good production. I mean, you have Swerve City, romantic dreams, and intoned that my go-to songs, always, even songs like Rosemary that I thoroughly do enjoy. The track list is pretty well paced here, and the mood is just generally Deftones always does have a mellow, dramatically sad mood in this regard, and this album is no exception. I think where the differences do lie is where that transition in changing towards experimenting with more different genres like alternative do come into play in this regard. It's not as dramatic or in your face because they still keep that classic Deftones sound, but I feel like this is where that change definitely does take a turn. But yeah, it's gonna go on my number five spot here. I'm gonna save a lot of thoughts for my incoming album, so I kind of want to brush through these and then get to the heavyweights of the discography. But yeah, what's gonna be your number five?
Okay, okay, can't wait to hear that. Okay, so yeah, my number five, I'm gonna be completely original and put Koi no Yokan at number five as well. So yeah, I feel like from the Deftones slash Koi no Yokan era, like onwards, is when their sound and lyrical content started to shift a little more to more mature sounding music. Songs like Bored, Seven Words, Lotion, and Head Up sound like songs that could only be made by young people. and they have a youthful energy you don't really get from their later albums. From the 2010s onwards, you won't hear them making any songs referencing blowjobs or put bong hits in their songs like in their previous work. There's even less screaming on their later albums and more focus on singing and softer vocals as well. These albums sound like music made by people in their 30s, in their late 30s and 40s, and I like seeing them age with their music or noticing a change in their values in the music. This is when their music started to feel grandiose as well. Songs like Leathers and Rosemary sound so grand and epic. They have a sense of just feeling very big, you know. Like I also thought they carried over their fantastic heavy riffing from Diamond Eyes into this record. The riffs here also generally go quite hard too, like Swerve City, Leathers, Poltergeist, Tempest, Gauze, Rosemary, Goon Squad, hard riff after hard riff after hard riff on this album. These are some of the best riffs they've ever written, in my opinion. But they also make room for more melodic riffs like Romantic Dreams or Entombed. Speaking of which, that's one of the most beautiful love songs that they've ever made, actually. I love the vulnerability they express on that track. It could be their best ever love song, actually. And overall, they become more mature on this album lyrically, like I mentioned earlier. It's like they were turning over a new leaf, sort of, and becoming reborn. So it's fitting you have songs like Leathers on here that dive into topics such as being reborn. They don't completely lose their identity, though. They still have the more aggressive cuts like Goon Squad on here, and that's another fire riff actually on there. But overall, the album feels like a grown up Deftones. Thematically, they talk about love and deep emotional connections and new beginnings. And I love it for them. I love, you know, the maturity that they've displayed on this album, all with a bunch of headbangers and top tier riffing too. So yeah, great, another great album from Deftones. But what is your number four going to be?
All right, my number four is going to be Saturday Night Risk. Now, this album is man, what can I say about this album, man? This album was pretty good. Given that when I started listening to Deftones, I pretty much just listened to two albums, which I will get to later on. But then this was one of the albums that I decided, okay, I mean, they have an extensive discography. Let me give them a go. And this was an amazing album that did pop up. I mean, Holding the Earth, Rapture, Behave, even songs like
Yeah.
Rats, 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 which I know that you're not particularly a fan of, but that song I really did like how Chino tackled it in this regard. He kind of wanted to make it more of a heavy metal, or the band wanted to sort of make it more like a heavy metal song, which you can definitely tell. However, where the differences lie is in Chino's performance. There isn't really much growling in that. It's just screechingly loud, which is, in my opinion, a bit therapeutic. In my opinion, it's really really great. And then you have one of my favorite songs that Deftones has ever made here in Riviera. It's a very slow and mellow song. It feels very low, even though the energy it does go high when the chorus comes into play. I mean, the riff share, even though simplistic, it's very inspiring in a sense, and it really shines forth when the chorus comes through. But when it does mellow down towards Shino's verse, it's very simplistically low, and I just like those two elements swinging over together with the song Riviera. And the album in itself is plotted through very well. There are some very disturbing songs here. I'm not going to lie. Pink Cell Phone is one of the weirdest songs I've ever heard. I mean, that whole intro. I mean, if you want to know what I'm talking about, just listen to it yourself. Pink Cell Phone is some crazy shit, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't want to say what's been said there so that you know we don't get in trouble or whatnot. But yeah, it's really weird. But overall, this album is really really good. Deftones. I feel like they did try to recapture what they did within the two albums that I will, my top two that I will put forth over, which they didn't really execute well, but they did their job, in my opinion. With this album, it's really, really great. And yeah, this is going to land on my number four, Saturday Night Wrist. What's yours going to be?
Okay, so yeah, some interesting things to say about Saturday Night Risk, and yeah, I'm obviously gonna get to it quite soon. But yeah, my number four is actually gonna be Diamond Eyes, and yeah, This is one of their best produced albums and a fan favorite actually in the community. This is one of their best ever guitar tones ever. I know this is when they started to go into gent or degent or whatever, however you pronounce that subgenre. And I thought their foray into this was done pretty well too. The riffs are also some of their best ever, like Diamond Eyes, Royal, Command Control, Rocket Skates. All the riffs were killer. I've seen many lists rank this one near the top, but there's three other albums that they've dropped that are better than this one in my opinion. And it's their first album without Chi Chang, and for a lot of bands that may lead to a decline, but that didn't happen with Deftones. Instead, the tragedy of losing Chi didn't deter their careers or cause them to miss a step. Instead, it gave their career a second wind, and content-wise, they sound so optimistic and hopeful on this, particularly on the opening track. They talk about realigning and renewal. They also have some aggression on this, like on Royal or Control and Power, like on Command Control. But since this is Deftones, you'll obviously get the lustful songs about relationships and romance, such as You've Seen the Butcher, Beauty School, or the beautiful Sex Tape. That song went crazy on the internet a few years ago and gave them a resurgence in popularity, and it's hard to not see why. It's so beautiful and dreamy and romantic. Like Sex Tape is just such a blissful song, dude. Rocket Skates is such a hard track too, such a bop and headbanger. Many people say it's the best of this album, and I'm inclined to agree, although I love the title track more. That shit just goes crazy for me. This album sonically sounds so amazing. The riffs sound like razor sharp, like they could just cut your head off or something. And it's an incredibly consistent listen to. Like track 1 to track 10 are all killer, no filler. The only mid track is the last track for me. These are also some of Steven's most creative riffs ever too. Like Royal is such a unique sounding riff, and so are Prince and especially Rocket Skates. So if you're a sucker for a killer guitar riff like me, you love this record. You'll absolutely be head over heels with Diamond Eyes. Chino also sounds amazing as ever on this. Like his soft vocals on the title track are so heavenly, and even his screaming was still manic as ever. This album may not be as experimental as some of their previous work. They definitely lean more into the heavier side of things, but it still worked out amazingly. I freaking love this album. It's one of my favorite albums of the year 2010. Probably my second favorite one of that year, actually. And one of the best albums of the 2010s decade overall, in my opinion. But yeah, what is your number three?
All right, this is where I'm gonna have Diamond Eyes. A lot of our rankings are, they're very switch. This album is well,
Mhm.
this ranking, I should say, is pretty all over the place in that aspect, which is pretty good. But it just shows how closely knit these albums are together. And like we said, if you would pick any, if you think from our six or number seven spot, if you could pick any that were your favorite, I mean, we wouldn't blame you at all. We understand the vision. This album is just, oh, I'm sorry, this band is just that good. But nonetheless, Diamond Eyes. I really, really love this album. This album goes so hard. The elements that they mix between the shoegazy style going over to more um metal centrics on this album is incredible. I do like that sort of pitter patter that they were sort of putting forth on the album. With the intro, starting from the intro track with Diamond Eyes, going over to Royal, and then just going all the way down. Now, you mentioned one thing. You said that your Lost Song is probably the worst. Where it's gonna be probably my favorite song, or at least near the top. I mean, 976 Evil is I really like one thing about Deftones that really gets me going is Chino's vocals. It's very unique towards any other band in my opinion. I mean, nobody can really do it like him, and which is good. I mean, every band has their different style, which brings a lot of energy and uniqueness towards their bands. Besides, the production and the band members themselves, but I really like the singing elements that Ichino does when he gets to his bag here, and it is in the full display, in my opinion, in 976 Evil. It's a really, really great song. It's one of my favorite songs by Deftones as well. But they really do have some loaded bangers here, like Sex Tape, Rocket Skate, Prince, Beauty School. I mean, the entire track list, in my opinion, is very, very good here. It's damn near perfect, in my opinion. And yeah, this is gonna go at my number three spot. I really, really do enjoy this album. If I was a fan earlier, I'll probably be raving over this album from my days in primary school, when I started listening to more rock and metal music. But since I am a full metalhead now, I feel like I missed the bus there. But nonetheless, great album, highly recommended. But yeah, what's gonna be your number three?
Yeah, Diamond Eyes, yeah, it's a fan favorite. I've seen some rankings putting it at number one or number two, but yeah, it's a really, really amazing album. One
Understandable.
of the best albums of the 2010s for me. But yeah, my number three is gonna
Understandable.
be Saturday. Yeah, my number three is gonna be Saturday Night Wrist. This is their most underrated album for me. Like, it's always been one of my favorites from them, and it's also their most ethereal and nocturnal feeling album. Like, this album was just made for like late night drives or something. It has such a nice nighttime vibe to it from the onset. Like, you treat it to like the hole in the earth, and it has, their best ever bass line in my opinion, and it's produced so well too, from the guitars in the chorus to the overlaid verses and ethereal nature of that shoegaze instrumental. I just love Hole in the Earth. It's peak atmospheric Deftones. And most of the songs on the album are like this too. It also has some of the best guitar playing on this too. Steven leaned into melodic riffs on this a little more, and he did a stunning job as well. But even though this album is largely ethereal and definitely leans more into the softer aspects of Deftones' music, there's still some moments of incredibly heavy songs like the rage-filled Rapture or Rats Rats Rats, which for sure has Chino's most intense screaming vocals ever. Like, I legit think I heard him break his vocal cords or something on that track. So those here for their heavy stuff won't feel left out actually with this record. And even the riffing is so nuts on this album. Like, just listen to that heavy breakdown at the end of the song Beware. And the bass is so prominent on this album too. It's the last song the last album actually that their bassist Chi Cheng worked on. And in my opinion, this is his best work for the band. Many moments were where the bass makes the song or something. There's many moments like that on this album. Or it's like the most prominent part of the instrumental, such as on Hole in the Earth or Cherry Waves. Speaking of which, that's another dreamy track as well. I love the vocal effects on that track as well as the backing vocals too. And mine is one of, if not my favorite track on the album. Like, it has Serge Tankian from System of a Down on this, and he's one of the last people I'd think of for an ethereal track. But his chorus is so dreamy. I love the backing vocals on this as well as Chino's vocal effect. This song is just magic, guys, and the instrumental track is also so serene and yet serious too. It's such a welcome addition to this track list. And Xerxes is another song that just puts me on a high as well. I love its chorus, and that solo is a crowning achievement in Steven's career, in my opinion. And a special shout out to Abe Cunningham on the drums. He really snapped on that song as well. He often goes unmentioned, but his drums on this song go so crazy on this whole album actually, and his hi-hats also help with the sound, the lush and dreamy sound of this album. And yeah, Pink Cell Phone, yeah, Rossi did mention is a much disliked track in this album, but I like the instrumental and electronic elements on this. It's just what the lady on the track is talking about is just weird and gross, quite frankly. And and yeah, Combat is a hard track with a crazy good guitar riff as well. It really does give war vibes, so I thought the title of the song was fitting. And I love Riviera. I love that song so much. It could be this band's best ever outro song actually. It's so beautiful, nocturnal and dreamy, and kind of romantic too. So yeah, if you want to be put on a cloud, listen to Saturday Night Risk, guys. It has such a lush, dreamy soundscape. I feel like I'm lost in space when I listen to this record. It's just so atmospheric, and I love it. And I know Anthony Fantano isn't really a big fan of Deftones, but he mentioned that he likes Saturday Night Wrist on one of his videos. So like yeah, if you like him and you don't like the band, just give Night Wrist a listen, and yeah, it'll blow you away definitely. But yeah, what is your number two?
All right. Now TMC guy. Our number one and two is very. It's a very back and forth conversation that we always seem to have. We can never decide what
Yeah.
our number one and two is. Now, just to let you know, this is gonna be on our consensus list, bro. So
Mm.
whatever we say, and this is just more so hyping me up because I personally, I still don't know, bruh. These next two
Mhm.
albums are one of, if not, I'll just say one of the greatest new metal albums I have ever heard in my life. This, and I feel like it's just gonna stay that way. These two albums are just good. But otherwise, let me just get to this. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna put Around the Fur as my number two.
Damn.
I'm gonna put Around the Fur as my number two, man. Man, oh. Now, guys, you can see how much I'm struggling. I really don't know, man. I really don't know. But I'm gonna say Around the Fur me, but just to touch up on this album here, Around the Fur, it's loaded with a lot of great songs here. This album is perfect in my opinion. I mean, you have My Own Summer here, the intro track, which is one of the most popular songs that they have uploaded over in the genre. It's very, very great songs, going down through the entire playlist here. But just to touch on my favorite here, you also have the self-titled track Around the Fur. I really love the riffs on this album here, and how the lyrics really stood out for me. Now I did sort of forget the lyrics here, but they are really something that stood out to me here. I'm just trying to remember a couple out of the top of my head. But while I'm still rambling, you have a Brickheads, Be Quiet and Drive, Lotion, which is also one of my favorite Deftones songs that they've ever made. It's very, very heavy centric here, and the overall feel of this album is basically them perfecting Adrenaline in a sense. This is where they actually came out and exploded in the scene of new metal and really established their ground as one of the biggest rock bands in the world. Um, this track list is heated here. I mean, just a lot. Looking at the track list, I mean, you cannot go wrong with any song here that if could even be your favorite of all time from Deftones. With mine being Lotion, they really did do their job here, improving so very well from Adrenaline here. One of the best new metal albums that were ever made. What's going to be your number two though? Remember what I said? You can
Mm.
only pick. Nah, this is going to be a consensus list, bro.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Rossi like mentions, yeah, this is really it's a really really tough ranking. We've been going back and forth on these two for like years. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna stick to what my number one usually leans on being. So my number two is gonna be White Pony. My number two is gonna be White Pony. Like now, these next two albums are god tier though. These next two albums are so amazing. They're as perfect as an album can get. Some of my favorite albums of all time. If you were to ever do like a top 100 or even top 50 favorite albums of all time list, these next two albums would definitely make it. This is the album I definitely recommend as a gateway into this band. This is the album that's most praised and respected from them. It's one of the most beloved rock albums of this millennium. And this album has something for everybody actually too. The tracks here are they all have a unique feel and pull from various genres as well. I often go back and forth with this and ATF for their best. So yeah, this is their most experimental album ever too. Every song has something unique to offer. It also starts out with the strong rap rock heavy song, Back to School. It has such a unique riff and was actually the very first track I ever heard from this band. And it's followed up by the amazing and incredibly underrated A Fight to Sarah. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. In some versions of this album too, like Fight to Sarah is actually the first track on the album and is actually the intro track to White Pony. So yeah, it would still be a pretty banger intro too. So it has such a nice and amazing new metal riff, and it's actually one of Deftones' best outros ever on that track, Fight to Sarah. I just love Chino singing in that outro, so in the outro of Fight to Sarah. It's just so dreamy for me. It's just a psychedelic metal bliss on that track. Then there's Digital Bath, one of their more atmospheric tracks, drawing from dream pop, and I just love those clean guitar arpeggios on that track as well. Then there's the Grammy winning Elite, one of their heaviest tracks to date. It has some of Chino's most ferocious screaming ever. The industrial drums on RX Screen are killer too. There's shoegaze elements on Knife Party, trip hop and electronic sounds on Teenager, progressive metal on Passenger, and of course they have Keenan from Tool on this track. And there's art rock on Pink Maggot. So in terms of genre diversity, this album has it in spades. It's the most wide-reaching genre, wide-reaching genre and sonics wise from this band. Lyrically, you get the Deftones' usual of relationships and cryptic lyrics, but I think it's worth noting that this album is definitely their catchiest. Their best melodies are on this one, like RX Queen, Street Cop, Knife Party, Back to School, Change, all have memorable melodies. It's also one of their more emotionally poignant albums too. They have songs on here like Teenager that are so somber and moving. It's also such an ethereal and atmosphere focused album too. There's so many songs here that make me feel like I'm on a cloud or like floating in space or something. In fact, they might be on the nose about it because on Knife Party, they literally have a lyric on this where they say, "I could float here forever." It's such a dreamy and surreal listen this album is. So yeah, the electronic influences are quite apparent on this. I heard they were actually inspired by DJ Shadow's introducing album when making this album too. So yeah, atmosphere, mood, experimentation, emotion, lyrical content, catchiness. This album stands tall in all those areas. It's one of my all-time favorite albums ever. So yeah, let's get into our number one, dude. What is your favorite ever Deftones album?
Yeah, I'm gonna solidify it as White Pony. This album is I couldn't even say top 50. I'm even gonna probably say top five best songs or best albums of all time in my list. This album is just absolutely incredible through and through. I really love the intro in Back to School. It really sets the tone for this album here. And I also do like the music video. You could really tell in terms of how they sort of came up. You had Chino as the skateboarder kid here, just rhyming through, trying to also rap on the song as well, which is definitely a new. Even though it's not new within the whole new metal genre, it's definitely a new for this band and on this album here. And then it just gets better and better in my opinion. I'm not gonna pronounce the name of that song. You said it pretty well, but I'm probably gonna butcher it. But you also have Digital Party, Elite, RX Queen, Street Crop, which is
Cop.
also a really, really good, yeah, copy, yeah, that I really do like. And my favorite, I'm gonna say my favorite Deftones songs ever is Knife Party, and maybe second place would also be Change, which is actually, if I'm not mistaken, the most popular song to date.
Yeah.
I've been hearing the song everywhere on social medias. I've been hearing even a couple of people that I do know talk about not just the album itself, but just the band in this regard. And they really set a tone with this album here, breaking through with the industry here. If Around the Fur was them setting a foot in that industry, White Pony is definitely them stepping into that door as a group or as a band in themselves, letting them know that they're here to stay. And they've really made an incredible work of art, in my opinion, here. One of my favorite albums of all time, a definite 10 out of 10. There are no skips, there is no problems on this album. The elements, the genres that they do put forth on this album is just very incredible, and yeah, just one of my favorite albums of all time. So please tell me why Around the Fur is better in your eyes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, my number one is definitely gonna be Around the Fur, obviously. So yeah, I'm gonna just say it up front. This is one of my favorite metal albums of all time. Like, remember how I mentioned earlier that Deftones know how to kick off an album? Well, this album has their best ever intro song, in my opinion. My Own Summer is my absolute favorite ever Deftones track. It's the first full song I actually learned to play on the guitar, and it's honestly one of my favorite songs of all time. Actually, like that riff is so iconic and one of the best riffs in metal history, in my opinion. And the lyrics are pretty simplistic too. Like it's just Chino raging out about a really hot day he experienced once in the studio. Plus, also, this album is when he really started to get into his signature vocal performance. That breathy, whispering delivery contrasted with his harsh, screaming vocals. Often on the same song, he does this. But yeah, this album gets into themes of frustration, anger, longing, of course, relationships, love, attraction, lust, and sex as well. If you can already guess by looking at the album cover, yeah, women and relationships feature quite prominently in this album, and yeah, be it from even naming songs after parts of the vagina in the song like labia or labia, or even having a female add vocals to a song like MX. So yeah, women feature quite prominently on this album. And Ricketts is one of their most overlooked songs for me. Like I love the theme of feeling inadequate in someone's eyes and some vices he gets into a little too much. And that riff is such a nice backdrop to the lyrical content too. It really puts you in the same frustrated kind of bleak mood that the lyrics and Chino's performance convey. Chino and Stephen Carpenter, the guitarists, complement each other so well on this album too. Another one of my favorite Deftones songs is Be Quiet and Drive. It has such a nice rock radio summertime hit feel to it. The riff is instantly iconic and one of the most memorable riffs too. If there's anything first time listeners will take away from the song is that riff. It's the riff from Be Quiet and Drive. Chino delivers an amazing performance on it too, and I love the lyrics of longing to just escape, you know. Lotion has one of their best ever choruses. It's a really nice melody in an otherwise very abrasive and harsh song. Die the Flu is another great track too. I love that chorus that hits about halfway through the song. It's such a mesmerizing listen. Head Up is another one of their hella angry songs, and it has such a hard riff too. And I like the main idea of the song of, well, you know, walking into the world with your head up high, no matter what it throws at you. It's a very cathartic listen. It's a song I often turned to when I was in a bad mood back in high school. The hidden track Damone is a must listen to. Stick around for that one. Like it comes through at around the 32 minute and 30-second mark of the song MX. Another great chorus on that one too. But yeah, this is a great album, guys. It's been my favorite Deftones record for a long time now. The lyrics can be cryptic, but are generally understandable this time around. Every riff on this album is killer, and they're also relatively simple to play too. Stephen Carpenter does so much by doing so little. Like, just check the chorus riff of Labia. The riff from Mascara, Ricketts, Lotion, Head Up, all pretty simple to play, and all sounds so good. They put a greater emphasis on rhythm and groove than technical proficiency, and I love them for it. They try to blow you away with how well they sound instead of how well they play. So yeah, that is my all-time favorite Deftones record, one of my favorite albums of all time, and thus concludes our Deftones ranking. So yeah, any closing thoughts from you, Rossi?
Yeah, Deftones, man. Like I said in the beginning of the video here, one of the best new metal bands that. Yeah, going into my final thoughts on our rankings here of Deftones and my overall feel. I mean, this is one of the greatest new metal bands ever. Just generally, the one of the greatest rock bands that were ever, discovered or brought up into the scene here. And the surge in popularity really does give a meaning to why they have been in the game for such a long time, for decades on end. With their new album that's coming out within I think it's this week if I'm not mistaken. I'm very, very anticipated for them to give us some new music here, see what they've been thinking, what they've been experimenting, what they're gonna bring over towards the table. But overall, this is definitely a band that everyone should listen to. It's a very I wouldn't say safe, but it is a very good way to jump into a genre, especially if you're not a metalhead or if you haven't not listened to any type of metal music before. If you have, I feel like it's going to be a very, very concise enjoyment for you, especially with our top ranking albums. They are very similar as you've seen from the rankings, so you will definitely not get any sort of issues here. If you do, let us know if you do. I mean, we'll let you know. You just give us our thoughts. We'll have a discussion in the comments if need be. Just let us know what you think overall if you do give them a listen, but I highly do recommend so. Their albums are insane, and yeah, that's I can't sing enough praises for this band. They're just that good. They're just that good. But TMC guy, please give us your final thoughts on the band here.
Yeah, guys, one of the greatest discographies in metal history. One of my like favorite discographies ever. It's a very, very consistent listen. Not a single bad album. If you know their worst album is like a 5 or a 6, then you know this band is amazing. They've been in the game for like 30 years at this point, and yeah, 9 amazing stacked albums, and yeah, I really can't wait for this Friday for the new record. Hopefully, you know, they can kind of, you know, get over this sort of lull period of their last 2 albums, get back into form, you know, like carry on the amazing work that they did in the Koino Yokan era and
Yeah.
before that. So yeah, hopefully they do deliver. But that is going to be it from us, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed our rankings. Tell us your rankings below. What are your favorite Deftones songs, guys? Did he put you onto a new band? Yeah, join the Deftones craze. You know, they blew up again in the 2020s. They've been, you know, one of the biggest bands of this decade, actually. And yeah, give this band a listen if you haven't. They're such an amazing, very unique band as well. One of my absolute favorite bands of all time. And yeah, like the video, comment what you guys think, subscribe. Thank you for all the support once again. We really love and appreciate it. And yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next video. See you guys on Friday. Peace.